Hi, everyone, and welcome to our new series about what I'm going to be calling super radicals or 超部首. Uh, if you want more of an explanation as to what this means, what radicals are, why these are important, I'll be adding a separate video that will give an introduction to this series so we could just jump right in. The first super radical that we'll be discussing in this series is this radical, which you might not recognize because this is the ancient seal script version. But you can see that this character is meant to represent some kind of house or something of that sort on top of a mountain. And this character is actually the modern day character Jing, Jing, which means capital. You might be familiar with this character from the word Beijing, right, the capital of China. Something that we see in this super radical, as well as other super radicals, is that it's actually made up of several smaller regular radicals, which don't give it much of its meaning or of its sound, right? So it's basically made up of this tou, kou, and xiao. So it doesn't sound like any of those three, and it doesn't really hold the meaning of any of these three radicals. The reason that this super radical is important to you is because it lends its sound to many other characters. So by being familiar with this character element, you can actually better remember and understand the reasoning behind the sounds of several other characters. So first, we're going to look at some characters that actually sound like the original Qing. Okay, so this first one is Jing. Just a side note about the color system that I'm using for the Pinyin. I'm using the Pleco coloring system. There are several different kinds of coloring systems, which are another tool which can aid us in remembering the tones of characters. Okay, so back to our subject, the character Jing. Okay, so you can see that it's made up of two character elements. Okay, on top here we have the sun, or Ru. Okay, and on the bottom we have the Qing that we were talking about. Okay, so this character meaning scenery or something relating to that. Okay, you may be familiar from the word with the word Fengqing, okay, which means like view or landscape of some sort. This character further gives sound to another character, character Ying, okay, which you might be familiar from the word Yingzi, okay, meaning shadow or something of that sort. Okay, so this is like a second generation character to that original character Jing. Okay, so we still see the Qing element, but we've lost some of the sound along the way. Okay, the second character that I want to talk about is Jing. Okay, so very clearly you can see where we get our sound here on the right from the Qing, okay, and the meaning, okay, from the standing heart radical. You might be familiar with the word Qingya, okay, meaning like surprise. Okay, what's unique about this character though is that this is only true if we're talking about the simplified Chinese. If we take a look at the traditional version of this character, it looks like this. Okay, still pronounced obviously Qing. Okay, but the character sound is received from this element over here, which is actually from this character Qing. Okay, meaning respect. Okay, we'll discuss this character and the sound that it lends to other characters in a separate video. Okay, and this is a much less familiar character, also pronounced Qing. Okay, this means whale. Okay, so Qingyu, okay, meaning whale. Okay, obviously you can see the Qing element on the right, and on the left-hand side, the meaning element of the character, meaning fish, okay, or something from the fish family. Okay, so the next set of characters that we'll look at are characters that have quite lost the modern pronunciation of the word "ting." Okay, this can happen for several reasons. Okay, different pronunciations, loss of pronunciation throughout the development of the language, but these characters are all pronounced the same as each other. The qing element of these characters, okay, is still what lends them their sound. Okay, so this first one is liang, okay, from meaning cold or something along those lines. You may be familiar with liang kuai, okay, meaning cool, okay, cool weather, cool air. The second is liang, okay, liang, okay, meaning to forgive. Okay, you might be familiar with yuan liang. And the third is a less familiar character, at least for lower intermediate learners. This is also pronounced liang, okay, meaning to dry, okay, to dry out in the sun, liang gan, okay. In these three characters, we can see the sound element on the right coming from the original qing, but in these characters giving them the sound liang, okay, or liang. And on the left-hand side, we could see their meaning element, right? Ice, speaking, and sun, which are obviously related to their meanings. Lastly, I would like to speak about two extreme exceptions, okay, where it almost completely loses its original sound, really just saving the first part of the pronunciation. This is the very, very familiar word jiu, okay, which means only, okay. This character also leads itself to two other characters, rather archaic characters, also pronounced jiu and jiu, one being a certain kind of bird or condor, and the other one meaning to lend or to rent. Lastly, we have another character that the character jiu gives its sound to, which is the character tu. Tu means kicking, treading, quite an archaic character. You won't see it often or use it often, mostly just maybe in several chengyu or some other sayings. So you can see the sound element here on the right coming from jiu, and on the left-hand side, the meaning radical, which is a foot, okay, which has to do with its meaning. The last exception is the character lue. Okay, you can see it here in the word lue tuo, okay, meaning to rob, to plunder. And so this really is an exception. So although we can see the qing element, we can't really connect it using the sound. On the left-hand side, we see the element of the character that gives it its meaning, right? The shou, okay, which, because this has to do with robbing, something that you would do with your hands. So in order to remember this, you could kind of just remember that this is the exception. And maybe that will help you remember this character. So on the right here, I just want to show you, before we finish up, some extremely archaic characters which also use the qing element. Some of them really retaining the original sound, some of them being quite close, and some of them almost losing it completely. I'm not going to go into these characters, what they mean or anything like that. If you are interested, you can feel free to look them up on your own, but I recommend focusing on what we talked about until now. So that's all for today. If you find this video interesting, have any other super radicals that you're familiar with that you would want to learn more about or share with others, please leave a comment below, like the video, subscribe, and I'll be coming out with more videos like this one. So stay tuned.